Yeah.
That makes sense.
So we mixed around.
Alright, so, welcome again to,
Wait, you're not the host? You're not the host. Yeah, the host do it.
What's the show?
It's pitch this.
What was that?
Pitch this. The show is pitch this.
Bitch this?
No, pitch. You can't say bitch on television.
can't say fucking what?
You can't say bitch on television.
Fucking
Hey guys, let's get ready for Pitch This! With our host, me, Dylan, and
Zach Palmer, MD.
Devin McNerland.
and with our guest,
Carter Fitzer.
What's up? It's your boy, Andrew Schmitz.
I mean, I wish I had a more cool name.
I fucking won up.
Alright, so,
Andy gets a point.
Yes! 1 point already.
can you guys tell us what the two pictures were?
I don't even fucking remember what the first one was.
One was a sci-fi movie set in San Francisco where the villain was a children's toy.
That's it. And the second one is just a Candyland movie.
Yeah. you ready, Andy?
I'm so fucking ready.
alright,
Alright,
so we might want to save the Candyland for later.
Yeah.
So let's go with the
Put that candy in your pocket and let it melt a little bit. Take it out later. Save it
Let's
for
go
your
with this
niece.
sci-fi round. Rock, paper, scissors, guys.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Fuck.
Ooh, Carter.
I guess I'll go first for this one. So to set the scene, the world has been debilitated by fucking disease, right? So a disease has completely swept across, leaving scattered amounts of civilization. Think Children of Men, a disease that has affected all of humanity because of our transgressions against the world, you know? And so pretty much the government has declared martial law against all of these pockets of civilization. And people aren't super happy about martial law, as people generally aren't. And so they're creating revolutions, and the government starts this small offshoot program to try and find someplace else that's habitable for humans. And they task one woman, a scientist, a redheaded scientist, to find people to take them on these adventures. So they start abducting children from the revolution. Government insurgents, they start abducting children, right? And taking them because they figure that a child's body can adapt better to different situations because, they're still growing. So they put them on this vessel they call the bus. Because it's yellow, bright, all these things, and the government is running the bus, and they're taking them on all these, fucking absurd places. They're going to, Pluto, they're checking out all these places to see, but they're building up, it's a classroom setting, because they don't want to scare the kids. So it's something along the lines of, a Miss Frizzle type character is taking these kids on the bus, but she is clearly working against them. Working against the kids' best interest because they don't know what's going to happen to these children, right? So they're taking the kids around, and I'm thinking Amy Adams would probably play Miss Frizzle. And so they're taking kids around on this magic school bus, if you will, to these different, worlds, and the kids start getting wary because kids start going missing, you guys ever seen that clip from Magic School Bus where the kid, takes his helmet off?
Yes.
Yeah, some shit like that would happen, right? And a kid would, because kids don't know to not take off helmets, right? And so a kid dies, and so these kids are, freaking out, and they have to find a way to take over the Magic School Bus and escape so they can get back to their rebellious parents. All of this cut with scenes of their parents fighting in this great war, not knowing where their children are.
Holy fucking
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, you
that
made
is
this.
a pitch! And
You
we're gonna...
made this fucking epic, sir. All right, Andy, can you?
Do I go
The
now?
Dark
Okay.
Magic School.
The dark, gritty Magic School Bus review. Okay, so my premise takes place in sort of those half-future type worlds. You guys ever seen Real Steel?
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of the future, but not really. Cars still look the same, but cell phones are more
It's
advanced.
20 minutes into the future.
Yes, basically. So at this point in the future, you guys know in Blade Runner 2049 how these set up that the game Watch Dogs. Mm-hmm. This is kind of like that universe in that everything exists on the internet. You don't have a wallet anymore. You only have your phone. You have your credit card. You have your social security card. You have your passport. Everything is digitalized. And everything has a computer in it. They now have fridges with computers in it, with little TV screens. Every fucking fridge has a little TV screen on it. Children's toys are all somehow electronic or robotic, including rubber duckies. So, the biggest computer in the world is in San Francisco because it's in Silicon Valley, you know. So basically everything in the world is on this one giant computer facility in San Francisco, and there are these like terrorists, these like sort of cyber terrorists. Is that the word? Alright, so these cyber terrorists, and their plan is to infiltrate the facility, and they have a little chip. Everything is like one of the few physical things though is chips, like these little like kind of like SD card type things you can insert in things, and it gives it a new program. For instance, a lot of kids' toys, you know like in Big Hero 6 how Baymax, you can like put different chips inside of him and he becomes like a different thing. Like they put the health chip in him and he becomes a health guy, and then they put the fighting chip in him and he becomes like a fighting guy. A lot of kids' toys are like that. So they have this virus that's designed to look like one of those chips. And their plan is to insert it into that big computer, and the computer will effectively shut down, and it'll be like Blade Runner 2049 when they're like, you know, when they allude to like the blackout where like everything, all the computers just went out like that. It'll be like that's what they want to do. It'll be like that level of apocalypse type scenario. But they accidentally misplace the chip, and a little girl finds it. And, like I already established, you put these little chips in your toys, she puts the chip in her rubber ducky. She's got a little rubber ducky, and he's kind of like a BB-8 type guy, where he's just kind of this cute, like, you put him in the bathtub with you, and he's just like a cute little BB-8 that just kind of like swims around with you. And he becomes fucking evil. And he gets himself kind of like a Pickle Rick, how he kind of like how Pickle Rick built himself like a mechanical.
It's like
body.
a rubber ducky Mac.
It'll be a rubber ducky that builds himself a mechanical body, and he's just going around taking over the world. And that's the premise. That's
Okay. Okay.
All right, so
Fight.
Yeah, fight.
Have you ever seen that movie Tiny Soldiers?
Is that
It's very similar.
Fuck, that's embarrassing.
Tiny G.I. Joe guys. Like,
So mine's a rubber ducky.
yeah, rubber ducky. So it's different. There, you have one rubber ducky. This is a
Yes.
squadron. So I'm gonna argue that yours is lesser because they have like a squadron. They got a bunch of G.I.
Ooh.
Joes.
Oh shit.
Shit.
And they all like specialization. Like one dude has like flamethrowers and
So
shit.
is this full attack mode? Or are we
Yeah.
attacking now?
Yeah.
I guess the one thing I'd say for yours is that how is the villain a toy?
Well, I mean, there's Magic School Bus toys. Have you ever seen like the Magic School
But
Bus?
the antagonist, I would say my biggest criticism with yours is that it doesn't really flow with the premise. It also takes place a lot in space.
Yeah, but San Francisco is where the base is formed.
I
It's where
suppose.
the rebels are there. So when we're cutting back to the parents, that's where they live. They live in dystopian San Francisco. Perhaps we could have shots of like the Golden Gate Bridge and stuff. So
Also, the premise wasn't to pitch a Magic School Bus movie,
no,
but you
Premise-
just made a Magic School Bus movie.
did make a Magic School Bus movie.
Interesting.
There are
It's
Magic
odd.
School Bus toys. So
I
and
suppose.
Alright, let's go to questions. Andy, your idea was interesting, but it was all the beginning of the film.
Yes.
Where's the end?
The end.
Where's the protagonist? I only see antagonist.
I
don't see
see
a-
the
I
little
actually know
girl.
exactly what I want the ending
Then
to
he
be.
never said that.
No.
What is your
Let me
ending?
finish.
Yeah.
I know exactly what I want the ending to be. So the entire time, the government is treating this rubber ducky as if he's just an evil robot.
Is he an anti-hero
What?
or is
Oh,
he?
let him finish.
I'm finishing, motherfucker! But the thing is, it works a lot like Baymax does, in that you put the evil chip, you put the fighting chip inside of him, but the health chip is still there. You're just adding more onto him. So he's still the same cute BB-8 rubber ducky that the little girl is best friends with. The government doesn't know this, and she just goes around trying to tell them, if I talk to him, he will listen to me and he will calm down. So the climax of the movie is, by this point, he's like ginormous. He's like just imagine like a Hulkbuster suit with just a little rubber ducky at the center. He's got like an army of robots. Like he builds himself like a fucking army at this point. And like San Francisco is in ruins. It's not. What's another like landmark in San Francisco that's not
Alcatraz.
Alcatraz. Fuck yeah, it's on Alcatraz, right? That's where they establish their base. Because the rubber ducky he gets in the ocean, this is when he first becomes evil, he'll get in the ocean and he'll swim to Alcatraz, and that's where he establishes his base. So the climax of the movie is like, in San Francisco it's like on lockdown, because it's like ground zero for this shit, so it's on lockdown, so no citizens are allowed in San Francisco, so the little girl has to save her best friend by like sneaking into the government base, like, and getting to Alcatraz and then finally talking to the rubber ducky.
So
He calms down.
the government is the antagonist, not the rubber ducky itself.
No,
Because the rubber ducky it's like Iron Giant.
no.
Yes, because like Iron
rubber
Giant
ducky-
was-
Well, hey,
Because
hey,
the Iron Giant
let
is-
Carter
Yeah,
Carter make those
I would
first.
argue that the rubber ducky is still an antagonist. You know, it's still malicious because of the chip. You know, it
Right.
has that good part in it, so it's just it's a well fleshed
Well,
out
yeah,
character. you know?
don't fight for it.
No, I was just establishing that. But my
I
problem
don't think
is
it's
where,
not the antagonist.
where is the terrorist organization during this? They have control of the chip? Are they
That's
not?
a good point.
Are they not? You know, because we mentioned the government, we mentioned the little girl. Like, what's the terror? Are they just like going to the back door? Like, we'll just cause the breakdown with this other chip that we made because we have backups of our code.
That's a
Like-
good fucking. That's another fun.
So.
So Carter, we're talking about his protagonist a little bit. Who's the protagonist in your story?
I would argue that the protagonist isn't one person, but the band of kids, and that echoes the protagonists earlier in the film with the rebels, because they're, you know, kind of doing what their parents have done. They're echoing what their parents are doing on a smaller scale, but they're still disrupting this martial government.
So it would be kind of like a, as we like to call it, a kids on bike movie.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, kids on bikes, but instead an entirely advanced spaceship they call a bus.
Also, how do they dispatch of this evil redheaded Amy Adams? Because I want to know that.
I would say that they probably, there's probably some very simple method to start the bus, and they probably send the bus somewhere that it can't come back from. They find, like Amy Adams is, like, driving the bus, and they're, like, in some person's body, like that one episode, right? And Amy Adams, like, has to, like, very narrowly escape somewhere that she couldn't have gotten out before, and she expresses that they couldn't have gotten out before, and so the kids send her, you know, they tie her up or something, throw her in the back, and send her to that spot,
Holy shit.
where she dies.
That's cool.
I think we should go to judging because I think it's been a bit
Yeah.
long. But okay, look, Carter, I love your premise. I think it's I think it's the best premise. But
It's not blood.
he did make a point that it wasn't to the prom. Originally, I was going to go with you. I
At
think
that
I'm gonna have
point,
to go with
I
him.
understand.
Alright, so now I'm gonna have to go with him. Though he did not have the
We
toy
go with who for the audience at home?
Carter. But your ducky wasn't the antagonist. You didn't really have an established antagonist because it could have either been the government, the terrorist organization, or maybe even the ducky fully became the antagonist in the end, and she had to fully kill him off.
Oh, that'd be
But
fucking brutal.
you never like put that down that there was an established antagonist, which the rubber ducky was supposed to be, or could have been. So I'm gonna have to give this to Carter.
Am I allowed to argue
Okay,
with him?
no. Okay.
No.
I think what you're doing with the Carter, I think in your story, Amy Adams is a great pick for Miss Frizzle villain. I think that's like a perfect casting. I also think like the way you defeat her, that's genius, honestly. Like for the story that you're going for. Unfortunately, I do have to give it to Andy.
Yes.
Simply for the reason of I love what you're doing with the ducky, and I think Dylan's wrong. I think that's a very clear antagonist. It's like a conflicted antagonist, but it's still an antagonistic force nonetheless.
Darth Vader is still an antagonist.
Yeah.
Well, it's Darth Vader.
Well, Darth Vader was an established antagonist in the first film,
True.
and they weren't supposed to go a different.
all right,
route.
so
It's
so I think the next pitch is a Candyland movie.
Yes.
Do you guys are you guys ready to rumble?
Yes.
I am.
All right.
Okay.
Rock,
paper, scissors.
again.
Fuck.
Really, two
I never
scissors.
learned. What was the scissors?
I guess I'll go first again.
All right.
So this film would be a think neo-noir style. So really like strong light source, really strong shadows with a lot of neon lights. I think that would really highlight this. It would bring in the Candyland aspect of it. And basically what happens is there's this established kingpin who sells drugs that he calls candy, and his name is the Candy King. You know, obviously 'cause he's kind of full of himself. And so he sells drugs, and he has gone missing. And so there are two sets of people who are very scared that he's not around. There's the detective agency, and then there is the established mafias and such that are worried where he's gone. Because the detective agencies are like, well, where'd he go? Is he making something bigger? Is he doing something worse? Like, we have to keep tabs on him, and the mafia is worried that if he's gone, there's a power vacuum, and then someone else is gonna have to come in, and we don't have business with that person. So we have no idea what kind of force we're coming up against if he's gone. And so pretty much it's a detective tale following two separate entities. And that's where the idea of it being a neo-noir needs to come in really strongly, because it really highlights the idea of good versus evil, light versus dark, right? Because we have the detective, who I want played by Idris Elba, because I love Idris Elba. And then the mafia member, who I want played by Matthew McConaughey. And I know that they just started together in the Dark Tower, but that's completely unrelated. And so pretty much what it is it's them going through this maze of like more or less like dark, seedy places, trying to find the Candy King, talking to people. And as it goes along, the film's vision changes. Instead of those harsh shadows, it starts softening out. Instead of true black, it gets gray. Things start merging because we see these two characters not as the archetypes that they were set before. The detective is willing to do things that wouldn't be becoming a detective because he has to do what's right. He's lawful good in the sense, or he's chaotic good in the sense that he's doing wrong things for the right reason. And then in relation, the mafia member who we would see at the beginning, McConaughey, do bad things. He's, helping people along the way, because he knows these people. These are his people. They may be drug addicts and stuff, but he knows them. And it would all come to a culmination with them meeting Princess Lollipop, right? That's one of the... She would be a drug addict who is like the second under to the Candy King. They've been trying to find her for a good while now. And so they meet her, and, she is very unhelpful to Idris Elba's character. Obviously, he's the feds. She's not gonna help him. And it would culminate into her injecting Idris Elba with some of her drugs, Candy King's drugs, and it would end with Idris Elba killing Princess Lollipop very brutally. It would be like a very dark, very neon light lit, like a lot of strong silhouettes scene, and it would be very impactful. And then we see Idris Elba, pick up like a card for where Candy King is, where he's hiding out. And then McConaughey would come along, and we would see him very tenderly, because he knew Princess Lollipop. We would see him very tenderly bury her, take the time out of his quest, and then continue on following Idris Elba, and they would meet. Pretty much in this completely gray landscape, because we don't know what to trust about these characters anymore. We don't know where they fall, because we see them be good and we see them be bad, and so we've built this up, and they have a relationship with each other, not having ever had to spoken a word, because of how they react to where the other one was. And so that would be told very visually. It would be a lot of swelling score, and it would culminate in them facing off. The Candy King, they can hear him down the hall, and then we cut to black, hear one gunshot, and then that's the end of the film.
Alright. Andy, go ahead.
Okay, so my Candyland universe. Basically, the start of the movie is sort of like a Lord of the Rings exposition at the beginning of the movie. So what happened was, let's say like 30 years ago, right? There's the Candy King who did rule and currently rules over Candyland, all Candyland, and he lives in like the Candy Castle or some shit like that. And then there's this other guy named Lord Licorice. Lord Licorice desires to take over Candyland and just cover the whole fucking place in licorice. Like, very, bitter, black, bitter licorice that doesn't even fucking taste good. That kind of licorice, so the gross kind of licorice. He wants to cover all of Candyland in that. So what he does is, he's somewhat of, an established person within the Candyland Empire. He's almost like an advisor. He's like a second in command sort of thing to King Candy.
He's like a Scar.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. But he secretly desires to take the whole place over.
That's my dad.
Sorry. He has this magic spell, right? And the magic spell is supposed to, if he does a certain type of ritual type thing, it's going to create a monster made of licorice so fucking big that it'll be able to destroy all of Candyland, and it will engulf the whole fucking land in licorice. So he makes this concoction, and the key ingredient is like his left hand or something. Basically, so he can only do it once. He can only make this concoction once. So he cuts off his left hand and he throws it in there. And also, by the way, this is like stop motion. It's sort of like it's gonna look very Fantastic Mr. Fox-esque, except with like much brighter colors and shit. And so he cuts off his hand and he makes the fucking potion, and in it comes this little licorice puppy. It's just a little puppy, right? And he's like, what the fuck is this? And then he looks through the book and he's like, okay, what I need to do is I need to take this guy to Candy Kingdom, because it's the specific kingdom, because he's outside the kingdom right now. He's like in a licorice forest, or no, a licorice castle. So he needs to take it specifically to the town of Candy Kingdom, and then it will transform. It's kind of like Sulfur in Thor Ragnarok. It needs to get there in order to transform into a giant monster. And then it'll turn into like a monster the size of a fucking mountain, and it'll destroy all of Candy Kingdom, and it'll fucking take over the whole place. But just as he's about to do this, King Candy has gotten a tip that he's conspiring against him, and he knocks and bangs on the door. He's got an army there, and they're here to arrest him. So in the scuffle, the puppy escapes, and he just runs off in the woods. He doesn't know. Lord of Licorice doesn't know where he is, and Lord of Licorice is forced to go into hiding. So flash forward 30 years.
Cool.
Yeah, right? It's very Lord of the Rings-esque. The puppy has managed to find itself in Gingerbread Village.
Is it still a puppy?
It's like a dog. Yeah, it's a cute dog, right? Actually no, it'll stay a puppy. It doesn't transform until it gets to the city. So the puppy has wandered off far away from the city, and he's now in Gingerbread Town, which is very Shire-esque. It's like this very small, peaceful, beautiful little town with a bunch of gingerbread houses. And there are these two kids who live with their grandmother in a gingerbread house, and they find the dog when they're really little, and they adopt him and they raise him, and now they're like 10 or something, right? So the timeline doesn't fucking match up. Let's say it's been 10 years. So the puppy finds his way, and the babies adopt the puppy, and they raise him as a puppy. It's just a cute fucking dog for these little kids, right? And then one day when they're exploring in their little surrounding area, because they've never left Gingerbread Town. They've never gone more than like a mile outside of Gingerbread Town. So they're kind of exploring, but they're also kind of adventurous, right? So they're kind of exploring, and they're walking through the forest where they normally, a path where they normally walk, and suddenly the trees kind of just start to turn into licorice. So what Lord Licorice has been doing is that he's just been like moving from place to place to place and just random out like the outskirts of Candyland, trying to make sure no one finds him. But the thing is, everywhere he goes, licorice like pops up. So you're walking through the forest, and suddenly as you're walking, the trees start to become licorice trees. And there's like, what the fuck is this? And then Lord Licorice sees them, and he's like, that's the puppy. So then he grabs him and he runs away. So he's on his way to Candy Kingdom right now, and he's got like. When the puppy's back to him, his strength is kind of coming back, right? So now he can grow an army. Before he couldn't grow, because he already had like licorice soldiers. Before he didn't have that when he cut off his arm, because he lost a lot of power when he cut off his hand or some shit. Basically, I'm sorry. So basically, it's a road trip movie, but they have to like go through like the board. Like on the board, it's like candy. So they have to go through the board and they have to get to Candyland. Also, key detail I forgot, they find a wizard, because they find this out. So they're like, fuck, we need to find a wizard. This is like a Lord of the Rings hero's journey type thing. We need a fucking wizard. So they find this old man in a shack, who used to be a wizard, but is not completely insane. And he's going to be voiced by Danny DeVito.
That's a good
And so
choice.
basically, it's like a character who you think will be like the old mentor type character, but he's not a mentor at all. He's fucking insane. And the climax is going to take place in the muddy swamp, because that shit always scared me. Like, it's just a creepy looking fucking thing in Candyland. And that's the ending.
Okay.
That's it. I have an ending.
All right, so I guess fight.
Can I? Oh. No.
No, you gotta fight
yeah.
first.
I forgot how the game is played.
This is
So
weird.
how are you gonna show that 10 years has passed if the puppy doesn't change? Would it be in the children growing up?
I mean, yeah.
Or the 10 years?
Because they're like essentially toddlers when they first find them.
Okay.
And now they're like
Yeah.
10 or 12 or something.
Okay.
Or you can just have a thing that says 10 years.
Yeah.
Adam Driver just walked in and out.
Driver.
Adam Driver, what are you doing here
I
again?
hated him in Star Wars. I say his character. I don't have anything against Adam Driver.
Okay.
Anything to say?
What was your question?
What? Oh, just about my.
Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, I guess the only thing I would say is I don't really know who your movie's for.
Okay.
Because it feels very, is it live action?
Yes.
Yeah, it feels almost too stylized and almost too, like it ends on a gunshot
Yeah.
to black.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very, like, avant-garde type
Yeah.
ending. And I don't know, like, kids aren't gonna really, I don't know if any child would ever want to watch
No.
that. Okay. And the only people that would want to watch that would be adults, and why would they watch a movie called Candyman?
It would absolutely be an adult style film, and that's the problem that a lot of films like this face is they can't find an audience because they're very moody, very specific, kind of like Blade Runner 2049. It was very specific, very moody, and a lot of people didn't like that a lot. And so I think that it can find a niche, especially with critics. And I think adults who have played Candyland would be interested, especially if the trailers very clearly portrayed that it's not a movie for children, you know. And I think there's basis on that alone. I mean, even what was it called, Battleship, that turned a profit. So.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, Battleship is not exactly the kind of movie you would want to compare.
No, exactly. This is just, that is the same idea of a children's thing made for adults in the same way, but it would be much more delicately done, much more intricately done.
I suppose, but it feels like a joke trailer that, like, Red Letter Media would make. Like an edgy Candyland movie.
Okay.
That's the only thing I would say.
I mean,
Alright.
Andy, who's to say that couldn't be thrown right back at you? Because, like,
Well, mine's not like
Well,
that.
that's your question.
Yeah, okay, can I, Andy, who's directing yours?
Who's a good animation director? Let's say Lord and Miller.
Okay.
They're really good at, like, inverting tropes, and that's another thing that I want to happen is, because, again, like, with the wizard character, it's sort of like an inverting of the hero's journey type trope. You got a wizard, because they're like, we're kids going on a magical adventure throughout this magical fairy tale land. We need ourselves a Gandalf right now, and you just get Danny DeVito, who is a wizard, but he's insane. He's very, he's like a child-friendly version of Rick from Rick and Morty.
Okay.
Can you explain more, Carter? Can you explain more why, in more detail, why Idris Elba kills Princess Lollipop?
Because he, at that point, you know, he's almost frantic with his search because his employers are breathing down his neck because this is King Candy's been gone for upwards of 2 weeks now, and that's way too long for the government to lose somebody they've kept such careful track of. And he has just been injected with possibly life-threatening drugs. He doesn't know what she did to him, so he is fighting for his life at that point, which is to show that he isn't necessarily a bad character. That isn't what the film is about, is him, a good guy turning bad. It's a good guy having a dark side because of the situation he's in.
I just want to ask you both two casting questions. Andy, who plays Black Licorice, and who plays Princess Lollipop?
I'm trying to think, who's got like a real good, I don't know, I'm thinking like maybe like Adrian Brody or Adam Driver, someone who's got like a really like deep, yeah, Adam Driver, yeah. Someone who's just got like a really deep voice that just, I feel like carries a lot of presence, but is still young, it's not like an old man. Like he looks about like, I don't know, 30, 40. Like he's not like an old, like, creepy old guy.
I'm not sure about casting. The thing about Princess Lollipop is it wouldn't be a very long role. It would be very powerful, very fluid. So I would feel almost bad if they're like a giant actress for screen time. So
Well, they did that with Orlando's with Anne Hathaway.
yeah, that's true.
that was also the beginning of this film. This would be like
Yeah.
the very end.
Yeah.
I think
also, if you had a big name actress, it might detract.
Well, he has Idris Elba and Matthew McConaughey.
No,
Like,
as
like-
bigger parts, but
yeah,
I
I think if you have those people on the poster, and then you have like, I don't know, like Amy Adams
But what-
like doing something.
But
Again, yeah.
But wouldn't they be upset for only seeing
I don't think-
advertising Amy
I
Adams?
don't think they would.
The question would be, would this character be recurring talked about like throughout the film? Like, would it be built up and
is-
then you finally have the reveal of who
Yes,
it
it
is?
would be very likely
Okay.
they would mention.
Okay.
And I could see
Then I
someone
think,
like-
yeah, I would agree with Zach.
I would be interested to see how Daisy Ridley could fill the role. Thinking that's just the first actress that comes to mind because we haven't seen her in something like that yet. I would be interested to see that, or I've really been liking Zendaya and a lot of things. I think Princess Lollipop is younger, you know, that's why she's taken on the moniker of Princess. So Daisy Ridley or Zendaya could either fit the role because they haven't done something like that before, and I'd be interested to see how they take on the challenge.
I also have a question for both of you. What is the pacing of your film? Because I was very confused on the pacing of both of yours.
Okay. Mine is it's going to be very Hobbit inspired.
Mhm.
So it's very much like sort of like a throwback to like just a classic child's fantasy story of just like a road trip. So imagine, I can't use the Hobbit movies as an example, but very, very Hobbit type pacing.
How quick would the explanation of the dog and the liquor and the whole like licorice scenario to the kids
I
end
would-
the story? That's what I'm really confused
I
about.
would say it's about as long as like you ever see Tangled, like the opening of Tangled. Have you?
I've seen the opening of Tank. It's like maybe
Just
3 to
opening-
5 minutes.
Yeah, it's just opening
It's-
exposition.
yeah.
Like Lord of the Rings has opening exposition to
Well,
set
but-
the stage.
I wouldn't go with Lord of the Rings because Lord of the Rings is like a,
Yeah.
a 20-minute.
It has the first like whole story and then the Hobbit.
Yeah.
Right.
I would say for mine, it would start out very quick, but it would become this kind of slow, methodical, moody kind of movie that I think a lot of people can appreciate, especially with the visuals, because I think it would be very visually striking. I mean, you guys saw Blade Runner 2049, I assume. A lot of those shots were held for a great amount of time because they were so gorgeous, you know? They held so much scenery, and you could get so much depth from the scene just from that. So I feel like a lot of it would be very slow, and then the interactions with the characters, because I think we would interact with most of the characters from Candyland, would be much faster paced as it's an interrogation or kind of a hostage situation at that point.
So it would like kind of change. Through
Yeah, it would rapidly change to, you know, not leave the viewer too long with feeling, okay, this is kind of slow.
Alright.
Okay.
Well,
I think I'm ready for
yeah,
mine.
I think
Yeah.
Can I go first? This was really tough for me, actually. Like, I really like both of these, and I think you both brought like really different interpretations to the story. Andy, I really love Black Licorice as a villain, but I don't like the idea of your voice cast for him.
Okay.
I would have gone older for him.
Okay.
I like the style that you've chosen. I like the directors. I think the Licorice Puppy is incredibly marketable, but I'm gonna have to give it to Carter because I think that his take is just so. I do agree with your point that it does kind of seem like something that would just be like a trailer and it'd be like, oh, that's funny. But I think he sold it on just the pacing, and I think he sold it also on the lighting is like the way you described it. I think was very vivid, and also I think Daisy Ridley is a really excellent choice. And for me, that was one of the tipping points actually, because I think Daisy Ridley in particular would be an interesting choice for like a character who's just briefly in a movie but would make a big impact.
I'm gonna say that both of you had really good beginnings and endings, and you've had really good atmosphere. But Andy, I didn't see really a middle part of your film. You briefly skimmed over what would be the base of your film. You talked a lot about the beginning and a good portion about the end, but I didn't hear any beginning, so I'm gonna have to give this one to Carter.
I'm sorry, but
Oh no! Everyone went to.
I'm
Carter.
sorry, but look.
I'm genuinely surprised.
I would like to see both of these
Well,
movies.
look. Just because it is a new, interesting take, I will have to agree with you. I wouldn't necessarily call this a Candyland movie. I wouldn't necessarily see it as a Candyland movie, but what you took from the base concept of Candyland and what you twisted into is really imaginative, and I have to give props to you. So it's
That
a sweet.
means it's
I
our
think
bonus
Ridley would be
round.
More likely to be me.
Yes.
I could definitely-
Yeah.
I could like legitimately see that as a real movie, like a real
After I
animated
envisioned
movie.
like the wizard character, I
Yeah.
kind of wanted to see this movie.
Yeah, not even like I like the idea of stop
Okay.
motion, but I could see Pixar picking up a movie
So
like
we
that.
tied them, right?
Yeah.
you tied.
And
Speed
now we
round.
go on to the bonus round.
Oh, bonus round.
So two actors.
So to close eyes.
Close your eyes so you don't see who it is.
So he picks out two things.
Yeah, two actor. Here, you can start. You can start with directors. One director,
One Direction.
It's
one
two acts.
one genre, and one ending.
One ending.
Adam
what
Driver.
genre?
Say a word.
Is that a genre that I have there?
Fuck. Get out of there.
Is the genre the director and an ending?
Oh no, these are the actors. What's the actors? These are the actors.
That's Adam Driver, I've seen The City. Star Wars Last Jedi premieres on December 18th.
December 14th.
Oh, I don't know what it's movie. Yeah, you can look what you're doing.
Don't say what it is.
Don't say what it is.
Oh my god.
Oh,
On
Jesus.
the 16th, so
Okay.
I've been looking to like print.
Alright, I'm going to start the timer. Are all of you ready?
Oh fuck, hold on 1 second. Wait, I don't have a fucking director. Oh wait, what is this?
I think I need to select
Empty.
the.
That's just an empty thing. There's nothing on there. What am I missing? I have 2 actors, I have a genre.
You have an ending.
I don't have an ending.
Unless there's some missing details that could add to the photo.
Okay. I just think it's.
Alright.
Man, this
And
is-
now a word from our sponsors, Loot Crate.
One thing that I just got a buzz for that might be interesting. Variety broke the news story that Quentin Tarantino and J.J. Abrams are teaming up on the Star Wars pitch.
Are you
Star
fucking-
Trek.
are you-
Star Trek. I mean,
Star
For
Trek.
movie or TV?
Star Trek.
For movie or TV?
I don't know. Variety just a Star Trek movie at Paramount.
Here's a paper and pen if you want to write something.
So fucking wild.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
Andy, do you want a pen and paper?
Yeah, actually not.
What are you doing over there?
Adam Driver, what's going
I'm
on?
printing photos for Art Jones.
Yo, can I go fast?
Yeah, go ahead.
You did not speak to Adam Driver unless you were spoken to by Adam Driver.
Oh my god, Adam Driver's a diva.
Wow, such a like horrible human
You
being.
want to see the photos?
Sure, I'd love to see your photo. For
My
our
name's
viewers
Adam
at
Driver,
home,
and I approve this
Describe it.
podcast.
for our viewers at home, I'm showing you this photo. What do you guys think?
It's underwhelming.
Yeah, it's pretty. Wow.
Damn.
Hey,
I'm Carter.
Adam,
Nice to meet you.
nice to meet you too.
Movie.
Dude, you shook hands with
It's a
Adam
movie
Driver.
with Paramount.
yeah, I know, but
Make
like,
his
isn't that
hand
fucking
signed.
crazy?
That's interesting.
someone
Like,
else
so
that
is it gonna be like
I
a
imagine
continuation of
watch that again.
J.J. Abrams films, or
I don't know, but
that's like
Actually,
weird?
a really good setup.
Yeah.
but I would like to see.
This photo though.
This commercial break so nice.
We'll cut this out.
Yeah.
This is a much less interesting commercial break than the other one. Is it still recording?
Yeah, it's still recording.
Hey, fuck you! Don't record me. I'm not.
Hey,
here.
I'll do what I want.
Hey, guess what? I just want to say that all the sponsorships, you can suck my ass. Please suck my ass.
Please.
Send me a message at suckmyass.gmail.com.
At Gmail, at Hotmail.
At hotmail.suckmyass.
Real dark, real quick.
Anybody have an AOL out there? Anybody on AOL anymore? Anybody?
Please, someone find my mom and tell her I love her.
Jesus Christ.
Just kidding, fuck her.
Oh no!
That's almost as dark as the Candyland
So
movie.
fuck your mom.
Yeah, fuck my mom.
Everybody just line up.
Line up, there's gonna be ticket sales.
Jesus Christ.
Okay.
Oh no, we're not.
I fucking got it though, I'm ready.
You still have 2.5 minutes.
Alright, so
Yeah. Think out a middle and an ending, Andy. That's where it gets-
Oh!
I just do like,
Oh!
I tripped on paper.
He tripped on paper.
I slid on it. I did that and it went slidey thing.
It's slidey thing.
Here's your thing. Here's your
Oh, thanks. Thanks. Anybody want to read the Resident Life agreement?
yeah.
I got the fuck.
Alright.
For our viewers at home, Jan, the champion, is still here.
Ayo.
All
Yana
residents
Zebra.
are required to register for spring 2018 classes no later than December 11th, 2017. Residents are eligible.
Or what?
Eligible.
Illegible? You can't even read them. They're illegible.
It's illegible.
College. Can't read.
Oh, who said I was in college?
Do we know what words are?
Can you?
What are words?
Wait. Can
Man.
Just magical things that people create to make things sound good. But guess what? They don't. They all suck. Everything sucks. Nothing matters. You're a disgrace. I'm a disgrace. We're gonna die.
Wow.
Meaningless, stupid, and poor.
Wow.
Because we chose art.
You gave me a paper cut of my weenus.
Wow. Some
elbow.
deep words from Dylan Foster there. You guys have a minute
We think
left.
you're like people.
You guys have a minute left.
Can I have a piece of paper?
I don't have a pen. You can steal. Wait, you steal his.
I'm not getting it.
These guys.
Oh,
Piece of paper. Yeah.
Are you ready to fight?
Yeah, I am. I'm ready to fight.
Oh,
You're gonna have to wait like
Put us in
2
fisticuffs.
weeks.
Oh, you want? We can do it now.
That would be true. Would you be willing to do that?
I'd be fine with it now.
Ooh, saucy. You wouldn't have any time to write things down.
Actually,
College
no,
board.
no.
Would it be to lightning
No.
round every round?
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Do you think we should do the championship round now? We don't even have.
We have
we don't-
two
we-
people here.
We don't even have our pitches for that.
Don't we though?
Yeah, we have
could
two random things that we could use. We could just steal and read.
Yeah, we
right?
can just put them.
I don't know. I think they should
I'm
have.
for
I think
it.
I think they should have a bit of time.
Nah, I think it's good. It'll be fun.
I think it's more fun if it's like on your
Yeah.
on the nose, and then they get more time later on in the actual like final part.
All right.
Woo! We're back from that long commercial break.
I still need to pee.
Oh jeez.
All right. So rock paper scissors between our two contestants. All right. So Carter, do you want to go first?
Are you?
Yeah, sure, I'll go first again. Just because I'll forget it if I don't keep going. Alright, so for the viewers back home, my director is Stanley Kubrick. I have Johnny Depp and Idris Elba as my two lead actors.
Wow.
The genre is horror.
Oh my gosh.
And the hero has been in an incestual relationship this entire time. That's
Holy shit!
Oh my god.
right.
Jesus.
Luck of the draw, man.
Killer app.
So, effectively what happens is Johnny Depp is, who's the guy that runs Virgin Mobile? Do you guys know? He, like, made a bunch
Yeah,
of
I know who he is.
Yeah. Johnny
Richard
Depp-
Virgin.
Yeah, probably.
That's his name now.
Johnny Depp is a character kind of similar to that in that he's a very wealthy man who has decided to pioneer space travel now that the government has decided to forego it. And in pioneering space travel, he decides to bring along a few people with him, right? And so they head out on the ship, and almost instantly, once they lose connection with the outside world, because no one has to be checking in, he's a private organization, he murders the two people. He takes cells from them and then murders them and begins growing test tube babies. And effectively what happens is Johnny Depp raises a slew in this spaceship of 6 to 8 test tube babies and then raises them up until they're probably about 7. And then every 7 years he pits them against one another in a gladiatorial type combat on this spaceship. And the two winning ones, each of different genders, so a male and a female, who survive get to live on the ship with him and help him operate the ship. Everyone else, unbeknownst to the children and soon to be known to the audience, he kills the children that don't survive and he harvests their remaining stem cells to keep himself alive. He's effectively using their stem cells to keep himself young. So he's raising these other crew members and killing off everyone else, effectively. And one of the first batches is, the winners were Idris Elba and Viola Davis, were the two people who survive. And they're kept in the same quarters, same time, and so during this time they slowly fall in love, right? Not knowing that they're literal siblings of stem cells, you know? And so eventually Idris Elba, who is the main character, finds the files of this literal children murder, and he confronts Johnny Depp about it. And Johnny Depp, in a fit of rage, grabs him, brings him over, and Idris Elba is still kind of sheepish. This is technically his father. This is the only father figure he's ever known, even though he hasn't grown, and now that Idris Elba is a full-grown adult, Johnny Depp is approximately his same age, thanks to the stem cells. And he takes Idris Elba's right hand and dips it in a vat of acid. Think similar to the burn on Fight Club, but the entire arm. And tells him, sends him back to his quarters to nurse his arm. And Viola Davis is fucking pissed about this, because Viola Davis is effectively in love with Idris Elba. And so she hatches a plot to kill Johnny Depp with acid, it would only be, fitting. And she attempts it by looping his shower head into a vat of acid, so when he takes a shower, he will, burn himself to death. And he does take a shower, but he, it falls and it burns his face. The entire face completely horribly disfigured, because I don't want to see Johnny Depp's face in this movie. But so he is, livid, and so he releases this, these 6 highly trained, because he's been training these children. He wants a good fight, right? So he releases these 6 children into the spaceship, and he cuts the lights. He just decides this is the fun and games that we're going to be having, and he sends them out with commands from them and the other crew members who are probably in their early 30s now, because Idris Elba and Viola Davis are both upper 40s, and so they, the every 7 years thing happens. And so Idris Elba and Viola Davis, while injured, have to fight their way through this horror maze of this spaceship that they've known for their entire lives, but suddenly they aren't sure if they do know it, because, it's all dark. They've never encountered dark in their entire lives. All the spaceship is closed off, and the climax is that they come into this observatory and they see this giant window into space, and they suddenly realize that they've never known they're on a spaceship, and it's just this jarring realization, and it drives Viola Davis to kill herself because her entire world has changed. So she sacrifices herself to fight off the kids so Idris Elba can face off against Johnny Depp in this horror movie-esque style, a lot of flickering lights, a lot of really strong silhouettes there. And it ends pretty much with Idris Elba, monologuing at Johnny Depp as he just completely kicks the shit out of him, right? Because Idris Elba's not a small man, and he's been doing physical labor his entire life. And so he's a very physically adept man, and it ends with him, killing Johnny Depp, likely with a scalpel or something, because they're in a med bay or something. I'd like to see just a really quick flash, and then Johnny Depp just staggers back with a scalpel in his neck, and he's still got this horribly disfigured face, and so then he falls, and I'd like to see this very striking over the top top down shot of Johnny Depp laying there and blood spreading out in this very specific pattern, as Stanley Kubrick would attest to, very specific. All of the set we would have seen all of the important set features before when we're seeing them do their chores, and I think that would be something really strong, is because the entire idea is that their entire worldview has changed, and it would end with Idris Elba more or less just floating through space in a spaceship full of corpses.
Holy shit. Alright, so, Andy, what...
I don't have any arguments against that.
No, what is your...
Okay, so mine is... I actually like this one. What do I say first?
Whatever.
One you
Yeah.
want to introduce us.
Okay, alright, so mine is a sci-fi movie directed by the Coen brothers, starring Sigourney Weaver. I'm gonna reveal the rest as we go. No, it's
But the viewers at home.
Yeah, if it's for thematic.
Yeah,
purposes.
okay.
Alright.
So, this is... I'm taking a page out of the original Star Wars book here, and I'm...
What's up, dude?
Adam Driver, get the fuck out of here!
Whoa!
Speaking of Star Wars...
Just get...
Okay, so this is a sci-fi film that is very dirty. It is very... it's basically... It's going to take place on sort of like a Mars-esque planet that's just desert. It's just a shitty planet that sucks. And Sigourney Weaver is living by herself. She's a farm woman. She owns a farm, and he raised some weird sci-fi crop, right? And so what's going on within this universe is, and we're never really going to fully explain it, it's always going to be kind of vague, but there's a vague Empire-esque force within the universe that's taken over pretty much the whole galaxy. So she is this small farm woman who really doesn't even have any contact to the rest of the world. She just knows that once a month, some Empire people come knock on her door and they demand a very large amount of her crops as a tax. So this Empire is also really fucking evil. In other planets, they're pretty much committing genocide, right? They are established evil figures. And the governess, I suppose you could say, of the district she's in is played by Daisy Ridley. So it's a very young woman. I know you like Daisy Ridley.
I
do.
do.
It's a young woman who is in charge of who is essentially the main antagonist of the county or whatever that Sigourney Weaver lives in. So with her neighbor and kind of friend but not really friend because they don't like each other too much, Hannibal Buress. I can't say his name too well, but he's essentially let's say he's like a cowboy type figure, or whatever this planet's equivalent of a cow wrangler is. But he's also just Hannibal Buress. So he's just.
And you're still going serious.
Yes. No. It's a Coen Brothers movie. So it's comedic, but in a very odd sense. It's very Big Lebowski. It's very Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Where it's like kind of like a goofy screwball comedy, but in just a really like almost like sarcastic way. You know how the Coen Brothers do. So it's very It's visually speaking, it's very No Country for Old Men, but tonally, it's kind of like Hail Caesar, like that type of humor. So basically, Sigourney Weaver and Hannibal Buress say, you know what, like, fuck this government, they're evil, they're committing genocide on other planets, and they're, like, taking massive amounts of taxes away from us. And they take a page out of the early Patriotic Americans book, and they decide to just start fucking with them. So they become these sort of, like, vigilante figures. Like, they put on masks, and they'll just, like, they'll just dump out, like, they'll do, like, a Boston Tea Party type scenario, where they just dump out all the crops they have, and they ruin them. So it's, like, not like... And it's specifically a very small threat against the Empire. So the Empire, like the higher-ups, don't fucking care. They're just like talking to the governess, to Daisy Ridley, where she's like, help, the people are like, they're like rebelling against me, and they're just like, you're just losing like some crops. Fucking deal with it yourself. This is not our problem, because the Empire is much bigger things. So it's very, very small. There's like this vague hint that there's a larger universe, but it's very fucking small. So they just become these sort of vigilante type figures. And then they get to, there's going to be some type thing, some climactic thing, where they end up at the base. And because they never attempted to start a revolution. They never wanted to start a revolution. They never wanted to, like, rally the people. They're just like, let's just fuck with these assholes. But they accidentally kind of start a revolution. And then a lot of people, like the whole, like, farmer town community comes to them, and they're just like, what do? We want to help. And they're like, shit. So they accidentally start a tiny revolution against the governess. And oh, by the way, I forgot to fucking mention this. One of the things that's hinted to is that Sigourney Weaver, one of the reasons why she is so, because her character is very similar to Frances McDormand in 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, where she's just this old, gruff woman. And one of the reasons that's hinted at is that why she's so angry is that all she's ever wanted is a child. She wanted a child, and she was pregnant, but miscarriage, so the baby was gone. And at the end, it's revealed that, and this is my final card, the ending, the villain is the hero's close relative. The baby wasn't a miscarriage, she was born, but the government took her away because the government does this. They just take random babies away to put in their fucking system. Daisy Ridley is Sigourney Weaver's daughter. And then she'll find this out, and I don't know what I want the ending to be, but I want it to be very No Country for Old Men-esque, or just kind of vague and ambiguous. Maybe like Sigourney Weaver will like find a piece of, like, she's got a gun to Daisy Ridley's head, she's about to shoot her, and then she'll be like looking through files or some shit, and she finds the file that finds out that it's like, oh no, she's my daughter. Maybe she just like won't shoot her, and she'll just like drop the gun and just like walk away, and Daisy Ridley just doesn't know how the fuck to react, and that'll be the ending. And that's the movie.
Wow.
Okay,
You guys
fight.
picked just 2 epics.
I would like I would watch both of these movies,
Yeah.
no doubt about it.
So I think it comes down just to the fight, guys.
Yeah, fight.
So I got a couple of problems.
Okay.
Ooh.
How does she not know that that the government took her child? It seems like she's on this desert land, nothing around. So why would she go to a hospital where the government could take her child? Where would the hospital be, and like how would she be okay with being put under to take the child away?
I guess you could just say like before she lived in a closer community, and it wasn't after until she lost the baby that she said fuck everyone and then went out to live in the middle of nowhere.
Okay.
So, but like it'll just be like, or not necessarily that like she was like under, like the baby came out, and then they just say like they take the baby away as they do, and then they come back and say there are complications, the baby passed. It's a stillborn or something, some government thing, and this is just like what the government does, like to recruit soldiers or recruit like army people and shit like that.
The Sigourney Weaver that you're weaving would be one that sounds like a very stick to her guns person. I think she would want to see the child, regardless of miscarriage or not. So
Or
you
maybe
can't
that
get
could
points
just
for
be
this if I
another one of the
recommend
reasons.
something.
Maybe that can just be another one of the reasons she doesn't like the
just
government.
like instead of saying a recommendation, just say like you should have.
You should have, what you could have done is, if she did say, I want to see the baby, to show that the government is sinister, have them inject the baby with something that makes it, fall asleep. And using a syringe on a child that early in a movie would very clearly show that this is not a government agency that you want to
I
trust.
suppose, but we're not going to see that in the movie. We're not even going to see the pregnancy. It's just going to be something that they mention, and then at the end, it'll be like, or so at some point, it'll be like revealed that like this is like one of the way the government recruits employees and shit like that is by doing this to just random families, and then we can maybe like establish that at some point towards the end of the movie, like just as like a subtle thing, and then we can bring it back. Oh, that's what happened to my baby. You're my daughter.
Okay.
Type thing.
How are we gonna know? Like, how did Daisy Ridley get up the ranks of this agency in this amount of time, right? Because she's the governess. She's literally the
governess.
governing force.
Yeah, but she's the governess of like a shitty county with like a population of like 300 people.
Okay.
Like it's a very low position, and that's going to be one of the reasons why no one sends her help or no one sends her aid is because they're just like, and that would be maybe she doesn't want to ask for aid because she wants to prove herself. She's very young and she wants to prove herself, and she's like, these people are fucking with me. I have to take them down because I want to go up in the ranks.
Okay. The people you're spinning as well with Hannibal Buress, which I think would be hilarious. Just for comedic I love Hannibal Buress.
With the Coen brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah, directed by the like in like Big Lebowski type dialogue.
Yeah. But they don't seem like people that like are, because you very directly said that they weren't trying to start a revolution, so these would not be big picture people. And
Exactly.
so why would Sigourney Weaver be looking through files at all? Why wouldn't she just go kill the governess? That's the problem.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't she just end that?
I suppose.
So she would never find that Daisy Ridley was her daughter. And what could have happened? What you could have done there is she kills her. Then she, finds like a government tag that has her name because they have to identify them somehow.
Yes.
And that could be, Daisy Weaver, but not Weaver.
I mean, well, this is like less of like a plot hole and more of just like a thing that I just haven't thought out yet that I could have thought out.
Andy, can I hear more about your thoughts on Carter's project?
Yeah, fuck, I don't know years. I guess my biggest complaint I would say is that there were a lot of times where I kind of forgot that it was supposed to be horror. Like, it was definitely dark, and it was twisty, and it was like twisty and had like a lot of like visual gore, like with the hand shit and the face shit. But nothing about it, it feels more thriller.
Okay.
Like, nothing about it specifically screams. Like, when I think Stanley Kubrick horror, I think The Shining. And The Shining obviously is a very high bar set, but The Shining is just this descent into madness.
Mm-hmm.
It's like horror in its like most pure sense. This is just a guy. Like, there's no. I'm not saying you have to have ghosts in this, but like it's just a guy that just kind of has a creepy face.
What would be your rebuttal for that?
My rebuttal to that would be a lot of the horror would come from some of it would come from the visuals. I wouldn't want any jump scares whatsoever. That's not a Stanley Kubrick way. But
I don't know. The axe scene in The Shining is kind of a
I
jump
guess,
scare.
but it's
But-
not
but-
like a
but-
jump
That's not a
scare.
jump
Yeah.
I would argue that this fits kind of nichely into Stanley Kubrick's kind of idea of psychological horror, in that these characters are all, finding their worldview completely changed, and it's changing them as people. We saw in The Shining, I'm not going to compare this to The Shining because I can't touch that, but The Shining, we see someone who is otherwise a normal kind of cocky man turn into this murderous person, right? Obviously, that's a much more slow burn for each character, for that specific character. But I would say that the changes that Idris Elba and Viola Davis go through, the things that cause Viola Davis to kill herself, because she's not a violent person in the terms of The Shining. She's not violent against other people, but she would take violence against herself because of her worldview changing. And I would say that's the horror, is the idea that you have grown up knowing this thing your entire life and to have it all turn, you don't know what to do, and at that point, she saw no other option but to kill herself.
Well,
Yes.
all right.
Okay.
Wow, I still think it's kind of tough.
Yeah.
You guys go ahead. I still have to think a little.
All right, both you guys had really, really interesting ideas, but I do have to go with Andy that yes. No. I'm not done. I have points for both of you. So yes, you didn't fully dive into the horror aspect because I think if maybe you looked more of people don't say it's horror, but is technically horror. 2001: Space Odyssey. If you looked more into 2001: Space Odyssey way of like an example of Stanley Kubrick's work beforehand, doing a somewhat of a horror elements, and like looked at that, you would have more of a Stanley Kubrick style of horror. But I think like you can incorporate that well with your story, and I think you really did well. You, baby, what the fuck? I'm sorry, but the whole baby thing, it just doesn't really work with me, and I don't see how neither of them could have realized like that they were each other or that they were related to each other.
I mean,
At any
Jesus,
aspect,
I'm
like
just
it's just like there's so many like little things of that it kind of felt like that plot point was kind of thrown in there at the last second.
was the last card that I read.
And-
it was thrown in.
It was thrown in at the last second, yeah.
And I just don't feel. I feel like that it wouldn't work well, and there would be one of those endings that would just piss off a lot of people. The twist would just piss people off, and it kind of pisses me off because I just don't feel like it works.
But
So
it's
I'm
not
gonna
really
have
his-
to. Yeah, this is my point, not yours. So I'm gonna have to give this one to go.
Okay, I'll go next. Again, like I said, I loved both of your things. Like, honestly, no doubt I would see both of these in theaters, like, opening weekend.
See an IMAX.
I would. I'd see his in IMAX more than I'd see
Definitely.
yours in IMAX.
Yeah.
Fucking Kubrick in IMAX?
True.
Fucking,
Would you buy it on Blu-ray?
I'd buy both of these on Blu-ray.
I'd buy
If they were
it.
good.
They're awesome-tacular.
No, I wouldn't.
Ah, fuck.
Andy, I liked what you did, just for, like, the sci-fi is new for the Coen brothers. We have not seen the Coen brothers use sci-fi before in any of their films. I think that's we've seen Kubrick do sci-fi, horror, both of them. We've seen him do it. So I think it's interesting that it's the luck of the cards, of course, but it's like I think you did a good job of interpreting how the Coen brothers would use sci-fi. I also like that you did a small sci-fi instead of this grand epic, and I think that's something that I like to see more of. I loved your use of Johnny Depp. I love it. Just burning his face off.
Because you don't want to look at Johnny Depp.
Perfect. I also think, like, luck of the draw. You got Idris Elba in there, and I think you utilized him in who's the female? Viola Davis. I think those are a great pair, and I think they would have good chemistry on screen. I don't really understand what Idris Elba believes he's doing. Like, I don't understand, like, he believes he doesn't know that he's on a ship, and that was kind of confusing to me. Also, I didn't understand, the monologue during the fight doesn't seem like something Kubrick would do. I feel like he'd have a monologue after the fight, probably. You also, great offense, just like in the fight round. I think you had a much stronger offense than Andy had defense. Than like,
What was your offense? The
I just-
no, he was badgering you, and I think he did a great job with that. Ultimately, though, I will have to give it to Andy for the sheer use of the twist. I think his twist was better utilized.
Holy shit.
Because yours was kind of just seemed almost thrown in. It's sort of a peripheral
They were in
thing.
such, it was Viola Davis and Idris Elba.
I felt his added a lot more to the plot. So
Yeah, for that.
Dude,
fuck.
Leaving it down to you.
Devin.
All right.
Oh, man.
I'm gonna go into my thought process here. Look, I don't know. I was back and forth through the round. I was leaning a bit toward you, and then he came in with his back to back to back of all of these plot holes. But then you did mention how it is, like, I guess not necessarily a typical horror, and his rebuttal, not as strong as I expected it to be, but it works well enough. So, God fucking damn it, man.
which of these would you rather see in theaters?
Yeah, okay, so Theater A is playing this movie, Theater B is playing this movie.
They both come out opening like
They both start at the same
It's
time.
a midnight screening.
yeah.
Which are you going into?
Which ticket did you
Keep in mind, this movie's in 3D and you don't have 3D glasses.
Wow.
An added element.
Oh, Stanley Kubrick doing 3D. Let's hold it. Let's stop.
I think he'd do 3D. He'd make it fucking super symmetrical though, and it'd be amazing.
think I'm gonna have to go with Carter. I'm sorry.
Fuck, no.
I'm sorry. Just because of the plot holes that he brought up.
What was the bonus again, besides the baby?
The baby, the files at the end.
I guess.
And,
Like how is
Also, the whole thing of like you talked about how you wanted it to be small scale, but then it eventually did become grandiose scale.
But
And
it's
they-
still,
and they-
it's
because they
still,
started-
still,
It still felt small scale.
No, but like
because
guys, but
it's
the
just
thing
a
is-
governance.
The thing is, they like for some reason, like even though they were like supposed to not, they weren't trying to start a rebellion, but for some reason they did.
like the way that he described it, I think that
it's like a rebellion of like 15.
yeah, it's not like everyone gets in spaceships and they're flying
No,
around
there are
and
no
blowing
space
shit
battles.
up.
It's all- it's all
I think it's like
citizens
people
working.
just walk into like the post office and light things on fire.
Yeah. it's like a police office in a small town. Like that's the established. Like that's where Daisy Ridley works. Like it's like
I
that
have to go
size.
with Carter. I'm sorry.
Ah,
I love. It pains me because I want to see your movie.
I just want to see.
But you're not getting produced.
No.
But we would
Sorry.
like to see you back in the redemption rounds. All right, hug it
Carter
out,
has officially
hug it out, guys.
Come here.
That's a good hug.
All right, we'd love to see you, Carter versus Jan, coming up.